Hi everyone, good evening and welcome. It is an honor to be here tonight. It's a beautiful evening. Tonight I want to talk about Tzedakah, about charity, in a way that maybe you've never heard it before. I want to take you through a conversation that I had recently with someone, and maybe through this conversation, we can open another conversation about what charity really is. So, as a rabbi, I often have the great privilege of being able to collect funds for different people, for different causes, and I take my job as the steward of tzedakah, of charity money, very seriously. And recently, I was having a conversation with a young bride. She can't afford her wedding. And so I asked a number of people to be able to help support this couple as they enter this beautiful stage of life. And the bride was overwhelmed with gratitude. And she confided in me that she felt indebted and ashamed. She said, so many people are giving me money, I'm going to owe them for the rest of my life. And her feelings are understandable. I mean, receiving charity, right? Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of charity. And receiving charity can feel humbling. It can even feel embarrassing. But I shared with her a different perspective, and I want to share that perspective with you. I told her that she was actually giving them a gift as well by allowing people to share in the merit, by allowing people to help her. She was actually offering them a share in a beautiful mitzvah. And in Jewish tradition, supporting a bride in need, known as Hachnasat Kala, is one of the greatest charitable deeds. It says that there's no greater tzedakah than this, actually. And someone who I'd approached was so enthusiastic to contribute, and he thanked me for giving him the opportunity to help this bride, because he said that not often do I get an opportunity to share in what he called the partnership. The giver and the receiver are joined in a mutual exchange. One provides the funds, and the other grants the merit of the precious mitzvah. It's a partnership. The Midrash says that more than the giver does for the receiver does for the giver. It's actually a debate, right? Who's more important? Because if there was no one to receive, then there'd be nobody that could give. So the receiver may even be more important than the giver. The donor, in other words, benefits even more spiritually than the recipient benefits materially, because the recipient opens the door for this mitzvah, for this privilege that not always do we have an opportunity. And sometimes, there's a very different kind of approach. Oh, I'm giving away my hard-earned money. I earned this money. I'm giving it to the less fortunate. I'm giving it to someone else. But actually, it's this beautiful partnership and appreciating this idea. I think for this young bride, it turned an embarrassment into a comfort, and she realized that she wasn't just a passive taker, that she was an active giver in this partnership, and actually that she was giving up something because she had to share in the merit of the mitzvah. She had to share with those who were helping her celebrate. And just thinking about that she's actually, that there's merit. And I want to talk for a bit about Maybe I'll talk about that soon, actually, about what does that mean, like giving the merit? Like, what are you actually getting there? And I think, for me at least, this idea of sharing the merit really changes the entire view of tzedakah, of charity, and collecting funds. That tzedakah is not a one-way street. It's a two-way relationship of giving, and it's a partnership that uplifts everyone involved, myself included, where I'm often just a steward, right? I get nothing and I receive nothing, but I'm able to be the steward, the matchmaker between the two, and it's a beautiful place to be. What's amazing to me, and why I think this came up, it actually came up in a conversation that we were having about the Torah, this past week's Torah portion of Vayetze. And we read about Jacob, about Yaakov and his growing family, and after Leah gives birth to 4 sons, she has 2 more sons. She gives birth to 6 sons in total. And these 2 of her youngest 2 sons were Yissachar and Zevulun. And these 2 brothers became the founders of a remarkable partnership. According to the sages, the tribe of Zevulun, they were seafaring merchants. They were businessmen. And the tribe of Yissachar, they devoted themselves full-time to Torah study. And Zevulun and Yissachar, they made an agreement that Zevulun would financially support Yissachar's Torah learning, and in return, Zevulun would receive half of the spiritual reward for the Torah study. And actually, when Moses later blesses the 12 tribes, he mentioned Zevulun before Yissachar, because Yissachar's Torah was made possible by Zevulun's support. And the 2 were truly partners in every sense. Now, I want to talk a bit about this idea of sharing the reward of a mitzvah, because I think if you're not familiar with it, it may sound puzzling. Can you really split a spiritual reward? Like, what are we getting? What people are like, okay, that's nice. What am I actually getting for this? So, according to Jewish law, according to the code of Jewish law, you can split a spiritual reward. You can give away a spiritual gift. So the Code of Jewish Law rules that if someone is too busy with work, with other duties to study Torah, they can support a Torah scholar instead. And by doing so, it's considered as if the supporter themselves studied Torah. The supporter and the scholar can even, yes, and some do this, can even formalize a contract to split the rewards of the Torah learning. And you can find that example if you go look online. You can just go look for Yissachar Zevulun agreements. You can find forms online that will give you a partnership agreement. It's amazing. And I think that this arrangement reflects a powerful idea that someone who enables another person to do a holy deed shares in that holy deed. If you enable a mitzvah, you share in that mitzvah. And without Zevulun's support, Yissachar would not be able to learn at the same depth. And so Zevulun justly earns a share in the spiritual fruits of that learning. Now, Torah study is a classic example of that partnership principle. But the core idea applies broadly. Anytime you support someone in doing a mitzvah that you yourself can't do, you become a partner in that mitzvah. Our sages teach that both partners are rewarded fully, as if each had accomplished the good deed on their own. So far from that feeling the bride had of feeling indebted to the giver. Actually, the recipient can feel dignified knowing that they're providing an opportunity for others to do good. And the giver, rather than viewing the charity as a burden, like, why am I giving away my hard-earned money? The giver has the ability and the invitation to rejoice in having the chance to invest in the good deed, to invest in the good, and to reap the eternal rewards for that. I want to give you an example. I heard this story recently about a very different type of arrangement. So there's a really famous organization called Hatzalah. Hatzalah is a Jewish emergency service that operates practically in every Jewish neighborhood around the world. The Israeli branch is known as United Hatzalah, and it was founded by Eli Beer, and he published a book some time ago called 90 Seconds. And I was reading this book, and in there he tells this incredible story of, first of all, that organization itself is really incredible. I mean, his volunteer organization brings together over 7,000 volunteer medics to provide first aid until ambulances arrive. And what's unique about Hatzalah, if you don't know about it, is they have this Uber-like system where the task is given to the responder who is nearest to the scene. And there's so many lives that have been saved because of the system, which allows care to come to emergencies in a very fast way in under 90 seconds, which is why he named the book 90 Seconds. So in the book, he says that one day he receives a call from one of his volunteers saying that he was fired from his job. The volunteer was a truck driver, and he was delivering meat to customers the day before Passover. And while he was distributing the meat, he received an emergency call. A woman was giving birth on the side of the road, and without enough time to make it to the hospital, so he quickly raced to the scene. He abandoned his truck filled with meat to help deliver a healthy baby, and he waited with the couple until the ambulance arrived to bring them to the hospital. All this time, the owner of the meat distribution company is receiving angry calls from customers, like, where is our meat for Passover? Can you imagine? And they all wanted to know, with all the intensity of the pre-Passover rush, what happened. And when it became clear that the driver had chosen to help this woman give birth instead of fulfilling his work duties, he was fired. The boss told him, if you want to do mitzvahs, if you want to do good deeds, fine, but not on my dime. And so Eli Bear writes that he called the boss, but to no avail. And the boss was frustrated that this was happening again and again, and he wasn't willing to deal with it anymore. And finally, Eli says, I think you should go to a rabbi to resolve the matter. And so he agrees. They go to a rabbi, and after hearing both sides, the rabbi rules in favor of the boss, saying that while the employer must allow time for, let's say, prayers, for meals, for possible rest, according to Jewish law, the rabbi says, the employer is not obligated to pay for an employee's good deeds. But then the rabbi turns to the boss and asks him if he ever saved a life. The boss looks at the rabbi and says, no, I'm afraid of the sight of blood, which Eli says I jumped in, pointing out the absurdity that a butcher is afraid of blood. But the owner insisted. He said, the mere sight of human blood makes me faint. So the rabbi proposes a solution. He said, let's make a deal between the two of you. It's sort of Yissachar and Zevulun agreement. Right? The Mishnah says, one who saves a single soul, it's as if they've been saved the entire world. Since you don't have the opportunity to save lives directly, let's make an agreement with your employee. Every time he saves a life, you share in the merit, a 50-50 split. It was an offer he couldn't refuse. The merit of saving a life is priceless. But the employer agrees to it with one condition. what a character. He says that he'd share in the reward, but not just during working hours. Also, if the employee happened to save a life during his free time. Now, the employee says, well, why should a mitzvah, why should my good deed in private time be shared with my employer? But they negotiated, and they signed an agreement that for a life-saving event during working hours, the boss receives 50% of the mitzvah reward. And if it occurs after working hours, he gets 25% of the reward. Now, I know it sounds, absurd, but this is such a fundamental part of Jewish law and Jewish life. And I think it's a beautiful story that shows to me how eager a person can be to gain a share in a mitzvah when I myself can't perform it. The butcher, I think, realized that he'd never be delivering babies, he'd never be doing CPR. And by supporting someone who does, at first it was like, what are you doing on my dime? But then he realized the power and the merit of that he could cash in on that merit, so to speak. And from that day on, this once reluctant boss actually becomes proud of having Hatzalah volunteers on his staff, to the point where he decided to only hire employees who volunteer with Hatzalah, because he saw that when they go to save lives, he gets the spiritual credit as their partner. And so he literally started making these deals with every one of his employees. The idea of shared merit isn't just limited to formal agreements or to extraordinary stories. It's built into the very fabric of humanity. The Rebbe would often talk about this, that each of us is part of a collective partnership, that we're one spiritual family and we're responsible for one another. For example, and this goes into a very controversial gender conversation about mitzvahs, that there are certain mitzvahs that, according to Jewish law, only men perform, and others that only women perform. And that the marriage of a husband and wife, they can share in each other's mitzvah accomplishments. That when a woman lights Shabbat candles, her husband benefits and is considered a partner in that light. And when the man puts on tefillin, his wife shares in that mitzvah he performs. And the same principle extends, for example, to the entire community. For many centuries, there was the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and some of those commandments were only for the Kohanim, for the priests, and others to this day. There's other mitzvahs that can only be done in the land of Israel, and so on. So how does somebody not living in Israel, or somebody that wasn't a Kohen, partake in those mitzvahs? And by virtue of our unity, that we're one united entity, therefore everyone has a partner in the mitzvah. And that's why during the time of the temple, Jews would be very happy and forthcoming to give a share, would support the Kohanim. That was part of the responsibility of the Jewish community. And here today, a lot of people will support different mitzvahs in Israel to be part of that merit. And I love this idea that your fellow's mitzvah, in a very real spiritual sense, becomes your mitzvah too. That we each have a share in this collective treasury of merit. I think that in recent times, and today, this partnership is more important than ever. Because we live in a time that maybe it was like that before, I don't know. But I know today people are very busy. And the idea of being able to do certain things, it just seems impossible. And then we get an offer, like very often. especially this time of year. It's the end of the year. You'll get opportunities, people asking for donations to give. And I think the response to that is, what's the deal? How can I get the share in that mitzvah? So you can do it blindly. You can say, I would love a share in your mitzvah. Or you can ask the question, what's the deal? What can I share in? And I think that when there are people in crisis or people in need, we can feel the call to help as if I myself was the one that's in trouble. And when we embrace this partnership mindset, I think incredible things happen. And by looking at these, sometimes it feels annoying, like, there's different requests, or we don't feel like we're in a mood of giving. But each one of these, and I know because I have the great honor and privilege to be able to share moments with people on behalf of others. And it's an amazing opportunity, and it's an amazing way of looking at the world that I think not enough people talk about. That the giver doesn't have to feel arrogance, and the recipient doesn't have to feel shame, because we're in it together. That each one of us gives each other. Each one of us that gives, and there's one that receives. That a needy bride can thank those for sharing in the simcha, and those who shared in the simcha can thank the needy bride for giving them the opportunity. And this attitude only strengthens each one of us, the giver and the receiver. And it also allows us to share in, I would say, a brighter future. That when the sages teach that when we care for each other, that we merit the ultimate blessings, because it just becomes just kind of this attitude and this way of living just becomes a ripple effect. And this is exactly a world that we've been waiting for, the world of giving, the world of peace, the world we don't have to worry about it. So, here's my blessing to you and my wish for you. The next time, may even be today, the next time you have an opportunity to give, whether it's tzedakah, charity, whether it's time, whether it's support, I think to remember that you're not just helping someone out, you're entering into a partnership of souls. And if you find yourself on the receiving end for a moment and you feel ashamed, don't lose heart. Don't feel like a burden. By accepting help, you're providing someone else the chance to do good, and you're allowing them to share in the merit of the good that you do. And each of us has moments in our lives when we play the giver, and maybe there's also moments when we have to be the receiver. And each one of those moments is essential to the rhythm of life. And so tonight and always, may we continue to open our hearts to one another. May we continue to rejoice in the privilege of being partners with one another, partners in mitzvot. And in that merit, may we collectively experience an ever greater joy, an ever greater blessing, to be able to bring in a beautiful era, an era of peace. And thank you all. Thank you for being here with me, for sharing this beautiful, beautiful moment, this beautiful time with me. And Hashem should bless you. That another blessing, yes, I have endless blessings. Another blessing. Hashem should bless you, that you should always have enough to be able to give, that you should see yourself as the steward of the bounty and the gifts that God has given you. And you should continue to give with an open hand, loving, and being able to share the bounty and the kindness that you've been given for many long, happy, and healthy years, and the beautiful blessing that we say every Shabbat. May all those who occupy themselves faithfully with communal affairs, may the Holy One, blessed be He, give them their reward. Remove them from all sickness, heal their entire body, and send blessing and success to all their endeavors, together with all Israel. Let us say, Amen. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening.